Colts Bills. Colts take this one 41-15. Colts are now 6-5. Bills are now 6-4. Colts are putting with this game. There's a lot of things that just changed in the NFL. There's a lot of factors that just happened in the NFL. Even though it was a blowout game, a lot of things happened. I'll get right into it. Start with the Colts side of things, right? Colts moved to 6-5. They are now very close to inching on to the Titans in terms of the division. They could still win the division. I still truly believe in my heart, once the Titans figure out the running game, that they will be able to win this division, and I think they will at some point. That being said, Colts definitely put themselves in position to win the wild card spot. They're definitely in that race. It's just been that type of year where there's no team that's absolutely dominating. Like, you don't have a 14-2 Chiefs or a 13-3 Bills compared to last year, where 6-5 is completely out of the playoff race. They definitely could be. So that's one big thing in this game, as well as they beat a really good Bills team who's been, we'll get back to the not as good as last year, but they still beat a pretty solid Bills team, 41-15, complete blowout. And I'm going to stop before I move on to the Bills here. I think it was pretty obvious to say why the Colts were doing so good in this game. Offensively, Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the league this year by far, not even close. 32 carries, had 185 yards. That's 5.8 yards a carry, as well as 4 touchdowns. And he also had 19, and then he had 19 yards receiving on 3 receptions with another touchdown. So my man had 5 touchdowns in this game. Had about over 200 yards from scrimmage. I believe Jonathan Taylor's almost at 1,200 yards, scrimmage yards on the air, and scrimmage yards, if you guys don't know, is their receiving yards plus their rushing yards. So he's about 1,200 yards on the year with about half the season left to go. The year that me and my friends were talking about it in a group chat, the year that Adrian Peterson won MVP, which is the last time a running back won MVP, was in 2012. And with that year, Adrian Peterson had a little bit over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, which was fantastic. Pretty similar to, I think, Saquon Barkley in 2018. Saquon Barkley obviously didn't win MVP that year. With that being said, with how subpar I think all the quarterback play has been this year, had Kyler Murray starting off really hot. He kind of faded out. Aaron Rodgers is had up and down games. Josh Allen, who's had up and down games. Tom Brady's been solid. Justin Herbert's been solid, but when you look at the statistics, Jonathan Taylor is just off the map in terms of his production as a running back this year. And my question to you is, and I'd say he's definitely in the running. And I think if he continues this, and even if he excels it, with how subpar the quarterback plays this year, I think Jonathan Taylor deserves MVP. He's just been that good. What are your opinions on that, Max? Jonathan Taylor for MVP?
Let me just tell you one thing. If Jonathan Taylor wins MVP this year and Derrick Henry does not even get consideration last year, I will be so pissed. I'll be so mad about it. I get context matters. This year, the quarterback play has not been as good. But how does Henry, who rushes for over 2,000 yards, not get a single ounce of consideration? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I 100% agree with you. And then going further on that note, I was looking at the past. Everyone says, "Oh, an MVP is just a quarterback award at this point." While that is roughly true, I think running backs should be considered and they need to be pushed more. Derrick Henry, I think, should have definitely been in a better contention last year. That being said, I was looking at the past 20 years. It's been running back, quarterback nearly every year. My question is, where are the defensive players? I was looking at the statistics. Aaron Donald, 2018, 20 and a half sacks. And I don't think I ever considered him a candidate to really, really win MVP because, it's a quarterback award. We haven't had a defensive player win the MVP in 20 years. So it's just the MVP award everyone knows is funny. It's just with how bad the quarterback play this year is that, obviously, Max is 100% right. Derrick Henry should have been considered, and he should have been possibly the winner last year. With how bad the quarterback plays this year, we may have a running back take the MVP spot again, as long as Jonathan Taylor continues to keep it up. I mean, just looking at the stuff that he's put up, it's just been absolutely incredible. In terms of fantasy, he's had a bad night for Jonathan Taylor in fantasy. He's like a 20-point game and a 1-point PPR in terms of fantasy league you're in. But again, just fantastic out of him. Moving on from there, nothing really receiving was crazy on the Colts. And then defensively was okay too, nothing crazy. As far as I remember, Pay had a sack, and then I believe Franklin had an interception, and Autumn had an interception. But moving on to the Bills side of things, Josh Allen has not looked overly fantastic this year. He's had some pretty good games, but really not that MVP level performance that we expected out of Josh Allen there's a coming into this year. 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for him. Nothing crazy. Mitch Trubisky had a couple plays here and there, but nothing crazy from him. Matt Breida was the leading rusher for 51 yards. And then receiving wise, Knox was their number 1 receiver with 6 receptions and 80 yards. Davis had 27 yards receiving. Diggs held to 23 yards, but also had 2 touchdowns. So I don't really know you make of Diggs, really just a red zone threat there. But again, Diggs really hasn't been the same player that he was last year either. Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been overly productive. Cole Beasley hasn't been overly productive. Receiving wise, they haven't been great. Running back core, they have a decent running back core, but nothing that really stands out. I mean, between Breida, Singletary, and Moss, you have a group of subpar guys. None of them are, I would say, are bad running backs, but none of them really stick out and say, "Wow, this is something that's really going to make a difference." And then defensively, I know Poyer's been great this year, no doubt about it. But outside of Poyer, who's really sticking out on that defense to me? Greg Rousseau has been solid for a rookie. Micah Hyde's been so solid, but it's just not enough to really make a huge difference. They completely blow this game. The Bills are now 6-4, and they lost the lead in their division. And a division they really should have had it in the bag this year. So, comes from this game, Colts move themselves into playoff position. Jonathan Taylor puts himself into MVP contention, I believe. And then the Bills are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to win their division? The Bills start to lose their division. So, 3 major things that came out of this week, despite it being a blowout game, why it's very important. Max, any more comments on that?
Yeah, I think this goes really back to what I said earlier in the year. And I think this says way less about the Colts and more about the Bills, because especially on offense, how good really are they? Because like I said, they have Josh Allen and they have Stephon Diggs, and their secondary receiving is not good. Dawson Knox has been pretty good at tight end, but you're not going to rely on him like that as a huge threat or anything. And I think you're being fairly generous with their run game. Yeah, they have decent running backs, but overall the run game has been non-existent for them. And going back to the game against the Titans, which I really believe started to derail their momentum at the time. They lost that game mainly because the Titans came up with plenty of timely defensive stops, and even though they scored 31 points in the game, the Titans keeping them out of the end zone at critical times really preserved the win for them. And I mean, it goes to show no matter how good you are or have been, when you're one-dimensional, you're going to be figured out quickly. And I think this Bills team, I think they could figure it out this offseason, because I think that, if nothing, they're going to have to realize that they have an issue. But this year, I wouldn't, there's really no clear-cut contender, and I don't see anything that really separates them from the pack